Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to be doing a video review for the video game Biomutant. Now, I was kind of excited for this game. It looked kind of interesting. The whole aspect of like playing a samurai raccoon was interesting. But I want to kind of go into this because I've put about 60 hours, a little over 60 hours into the game. I've beaten the game. And I wanted to finally give my thoughts because I've been kind of grinding it out the last couple of days to try and make sure I got through it, and then so I could do this. So basically, this we same thing I did with movies. We're just gonna go through the basics. Story. There isn't much story. I mean, there is a basic story. There is a very basic story to provide the outline for the world and why you are the way you are, and why you are going out and doing all these things. There is a base to that. Unfortunately, that base is rather shallow. It's basically the idea of like, okay, there's a tree of life. It's been corrupted by various means. You need to uncorrupt the tree, and that way you can save the world. And basically, you get your little like an angel and devil type of thing on your shoulder where you could choose negative choices or positive choices, and it increases your dark or light aura. It definitely takes the spirit energy thing into consideration in this. There's a lot of like martial arts references and stuff. Um, and there is some backstory given to your character, but again, it's kind of one of those things. It's a very basic backstory for the most part, with very basic elements. It's not anything that's too over the top or too complicated. So I can't give it a really good score on the story because the story itself was not that great. The other thing is that the narrator. Now there's literally only one voice actor in this entire fucking game, and it's your narrator, and it is a British guy who is narrating over everything in the game. Now, I understand maybe they did that because of production choices. They did that because maybe they didn't want to spend a bunch of money. It's a smaller studio. Maybe they did that because they didn't want to spend a bunch of money and hire on a bunch of voice actors. But that voice does get grinding after a while, especially when you have characters and NPCs. Because basically the way it works is the characters and NPCs speak in like barks and yips and stuff like that, like animals. And then your little robot cricket British guy, basically he translates that into English for the player essentially. Um, so he narrates the entire conversation and says what they say. Now that gets weird because I would have liked it better if maybe they had done like a voice changing thing. Like, okay, this is how he would sound if he was human. This is how he would sound if he was human. Like they still do the same thing with the barks and yips, but maybe it's a different sort of voice that does different ones. I think having a bit more diversity in the voice cast for this would have been, and diversity I mean solely as in not just one dude. It would have been nice to have that. I think it would have fleshed out those characters a bit more and would have made them seem less two-dimensional. Because a lot of the characters do seem two-dimensional. They seem like throwaway characters. Some of them are interesting, like Out of Date, who is like your main guy. He's pretty interesting, and some of the other people you meet, like the scientist characters and stuff like that, are kind of interesting. Um, but outside of that, like most of the general characters you meet are kind of just very cookie cutter. It's like, oh, this is the one that tends the stables. This is the one that does this. Now, and again, I'm not saying that every NPC has to have some kind of deep backstory that compels you to do anything with them, but like even just like more than one or two, because there's really only a handful of them that you really actually give a shit about. And the problem too is, again, because of the dialogue, it's very, very wordy. I felt myself skipping past a lot of the dialogue because I just kind of wanted to get to the stuff, and that wasn't necessarily because I was trying to rush through the game. It was just because there was so much shit to do. And moving past the story element stuff, we're going to move into the actual world because it is a sandbox game. And as a sandbox game, it does very well. The world is very big. There's different areas you can explore. The only other thing too is that, well, maybe I'll get to this when I get to the upgrades. But there is kind of like there are different zones that you can go into. There's like a heat zone and like a no oxygen zone and a radioactive zone and a flame zone and stuff like that. So you need like different suits in the early part of the game to get through that. You actually do wind up finding them throughout the world, which I thought was pretty interesting. It's like, oh, that's a nice little mechanic. Like I have to change into this suit if I go in this area, or I have all these tools and stuff like that. But then by the end of the game, unfortunately, there's a mechanic where you literally can just upgrade your resistance to various things, so then you can just run through them. So having the suits is kind of literally nothing after a point. And then you also have a new game plus, which you can go into after that. And you keep all your stuff, which means that you also keep all your upgrades. So you really only need the suits for the early part of the first playthrough, and that's it. You don't need them for anything else. It feels kind of useless. I wish they had just left it so that you needed the suits to get through those areas, because it would have made things possibly a bit more challenging as well. Now, the rest of the world too is it's very expansive. There's different zones and stuff you can go into that are all pretty different than one another. The scenery itself is beautiful. The graphics in this game look really, really good in terms of like the world and the area around it. It has a certain aesthetic to it. It feels like it's playing a lot off like a Ratchet and Clank type of thing, or maybe like a Sly Cooper or a Spyro or something like that. But it's more aesthetically like that than gameplay wise. So aesthetically, I really, really do like the game. It's a beautiful looking game, and in saying that too, the music is also really good too. I love the music in this game. It's very relaxing for the most part when you're running through the world. It's a very relaxing game to play. I enjoyed the actual physically playing the game, even though I didn't really enjoy the story that much. But that's the other problem too, is that if you want to do a completionist run on this thing, it took me over 60 hours, and I didn't even complete everything. And that goes into another issue too about some glitches and stuff like that, which I'll get to at the end. But as far as gameplay goes, the gameplay is extremely repetitive. And the problem is that I literally had some of the same weapons from like about a quarter to a third of the way through the game until the very end. And I just upgraded them a little bit here and there, and they worked fine. Because that's the thing, is that as you gain levels and you increase your stats, like at the end of the game, I was getting a little bit of a challenge level from a couple of the boss fights, but at the same time, I had scavenged so much that I had so much healing implements that I could have just kept myself alive indefinitely if I wanted to. And again, I'm carrying that over into another playthrough. So there's a lot of sort of difficulty curve there that needs to be fixed. If you do buy the game, I would recommend playing on the hardest difficulty, because I played through on normal and it was way too easy by the end of the game. That's the other thing too, is that the gear that you get. So a lot of the gameplay around this is based off of customizing your gear, which is actually pretty fun. You can make some interesting looking things, add on to weapons, change handles, blades, do basically everything's interchangeable with guns. So they have a really good mechanic for crafting. The problem is that 99% of the shit you pick up is junk after you get past probably like level 15. Basically what you're going to get is you're going to get like 99% junk, and then you're going to find one thing that's really, 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 really good. And then you're going to get that thing, and you're going to wear that thing, and that's the only thing you're going to wear for the whole game. That's the problem too, is that I would have liked it if there was a lot more variation in the gear in terms of how powerful it was, because it's like, okay, I'm just going to take the gear with the highest armor, because I didn't really give a shit about anything else. You can upgrade all the other stats that it boosts, so it really doesn't matter a whole lot. That was one of the things, is like that. It's a great system, but they need to definitely balance it out a lot better. And in saying that too, the weapon damage and stuff like that, after a certain point, you just basically, like, there are weapons that do much better, and there are weapons that do much worse. You want something that fires quicker, and something that doesn't require a whole lot of reload. So basically, once you upgrade your weapon to have like a double drum mag and you can just hold down the trigger button and strafe, every single boss fight is incredibly easy. Again, I was playing on normal. I'd be curious if it's that easy on on harder difficulties. I'd like to try it again and play through it on a harder difficulty and at least see if the level is better. Now, in the early parts of the game, the actual difficulty is not terrible. Like it's okay, but the problem is it never really ratchets itself up all that much, except for a couple of the boss fights. Um, Now, as for the quests, the side quests, all that stuff. So, like the main quest line, I already explained. Side quests are usually collecting or finding items or doing fetch quests for different characters around the world. And that's basically it. There's nothing too amazing about that. Basically, you just learn a little bit about some stuff. And one other thing I'm going to go into this, which I thought was, I understand it because of the world that it is. Because the whole thing is this is supposed to be Earth after some like cataclysmic like event that wiped out all the people, and these animals are all that's left, and they've been mutated and changed and all that stuff. So they become, it's kind of like Planet of the Apes, I guess, if you want to go into that sort of a territory. So I understand that that's the whole idea. Like they learn about the past and how people like destroyed the planet and stuff like that. That's fine. The environmental message is extremely heavy-handed, especially because you're getting it from a staunch British man who is inside of a robot grasshopper. It just it comes off a little weird. It's like it's more. It shouldn't. These are animals. So when you're explaining something that an ant like they do a good job of it in other parts of the game where they explain something like, oh, this is how an animal might view this. And sometimes they do that with the dialogue. Sometimes they do that with like the way that things look. It's like, oh, that's a murder puff or something like that. You know, that thing looks like it's going to kill you. So it makes sense. But then you go into like the grasshopper gives you a breakdown of like greenhouse gases and how that shit works, and I'm just like, okay, I don't think the player character really needs to know anything about this. So that was a little strange. I will say that they definitely tried to put that message into this game, and it doesn't show up an extreme amount because of all the other shit you can do, but it definitely is an overarching theme. So if you don't like that, then you're probably not going to like the game. Um, and then the other thing I got to get to is the glitches. Now there are in the early part of the game, everything ran very smoothly for me. I didn't really have any issues. I could clear areas of quest activities and stuff like that, and clear villages and stuff like that of items and all that stuff. And it was pretty good. But then after I got to about a little over the halfway point, probably about 2/3 of the way through the game, then I started encountering a lot of glitches in the later areas of the game, which leads me to believe that maybe those areas were rushed a bit. Because there are instances of side quests that are just disappearing. There are instances of, oh, I got to go over there and kill this guy, but I already killed him, so the game's not registering that, so I can't complete the quest. If you're a completionist person like I am, where I really do like to try and 100% a playthrough, you're gonna get annoyed to the living shit by this. So that's something but that is something that they can fix in a patch. Also, by the way, I am playing the PC version of it. I did not get it for console. So if you're on console and it's different, then that's just something. I'm reviewing the PC version. So if various things on the consoles are different, then I'm not going to really go into that because I don't know about that. But overall, I'd probably have to say that the game is like a C plus to a B minus. Like I said, the story is very basic. It works for the world. It's fine. A little heavy-handed on the environmental thing, and then the gameplay and the world is really where it shines. Even though that gameplay does get repetitive, it's not like an Outriders where you're just grinding for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. At least you can go somewhere, you can complete a task, you can do this, you can get stuff, you can get weapon upgrades and things like that, even though, again, half the weapon upgrades don't really do anything to the weapons. Maybe it's just more the environment and stuff like that I really enjoyed about it, because that's the thing is they had a really good base for this game. They had a really good idea going into it. The problem was more or less the execution and kind of like pumping a story into it. And again, it's a massive world, so I understand maybe they didn't have enough time to do certain things, and maybe that's why that affected the voice acting and stuff like that. But it does, in the end, I think, for at least for me, it does hurt the game. But that's just kind of my opinion on it. I want to know what your opinion is. Have you played Biomutant? Have you not played Biomutant? Do you like the game? Do you not like the game? What are your thoughts on it? Put those in the comments below. I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications. Hit the like button. Subscribe. And remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?